Hey, it's Daryl again, and today I'm going to have a section called Reading Stuff for You. I'm going to read the Stuff Motoring page, well, specifically one article. So hang on, I have to have a jingle.
So it's reading stuff for you. I'm reading stuff for you. Reading stuff for you so you don't have to.
Yeah, there we go. I need to get somebody to produce me a song. So I'm just recording a bit of the screen as I go recording this article. This article is Electric Vehicle Numbers in Wellington Double in a Year. When did this come out? August 18th, 2 days ago. Electric vehicle numbers in Wellington double in a year. Wellingtonian Nathan Morrell has driven his Nissan Leaf around Wellington for 18 months and says the car is perfect for the capital. Nathan lives in Tawa, drives to work in Plimmerton, attends Saturday sports. His fuel bill is $10 a week. In 18 months he has owned his car, he saved more than $7,800 on petrol. But how friendly can the hilly capital be to an electric car, such as Morrell's Nissan Leaf, with only one fast charging point in the whole city? Okay, so I'm just going to editorialize. In the whole city, if you include Greater Wellington, there's actually kind of like a few more fast chargers than one, but the author of the article is just talking about in Wellington City. Wellington's first fast-charging electric vehicle station at Z in Vivian Street. There are also fast-charging points in Petone, Hutt Road in Petone, Lower Hutt, Upper Hutt and Poraroa, and also out where I live, Otaki, and over in the Wairarapa as well. Those two weren't mentioned in the article. Nathan answers vary. The answer, I have to go back to the question. Question is, how friendly can the hilly capital be in an electric car? And Nathan Morrell answers very. He means very friendly. He says the downhills actually help charge the car, which is true because all electric cars and hybrid cars have regenerative braking, which put power back into your battery when you're going downhill or braking to a halt, that type of thing. Cruising down Noringa Gorge, the Nissan can gain 2% of its charge right back. I don't know any other cars that will refuel while you go downhill, and it even saves on brake pad wear. He said, we bought it as a second vehicle, but for us it's become our main vehicle. Over the past year, the number of electric vehicles or EVs in Wellington region has more than doubled from 208 to 469, and 240 of them are trundling around the city according to NZTA figures. However, there's only one fast charger in central Wellington at Z and Vivian Street, as well as 5 slow chargers, 3 at Zealandia, 1 at the Sustainability Trust, and 1 at Z and Featherston Street. So editorialising, Z Energy is actually owned by the New Zealand government in a way because it's sort of owned by the retirement fund organisation, which sort of holds a lot of people's money in trust for retirement, something like that. I don't remember exactly how the details work. Z Energy is trying to be truly an energy company. They're not just trying to just sell petrol and other hydrocarbon fuels. They're trying to sell any kind of energy that people need to power their vehicles, I guess. However, there's only one fast charger in central Wellington at present in Z and Vivian Street, as well as 5 slow chargers, 3 at Zealandia, 1 at the Sustainability Trust, and 1 at Z and Featherston Street. There are also fast charging points in Hutt Road, Petone, at the Dow's Art Museum in Lower Hutt, and Queen Street in Upper Hutt, and Sorby Place in Poraroa. Missing out of this is the Otaki and the other one in it's Featherston Town and in Masterton. They're all in Greater Wellington in a way. People commute from those places is what I'm trying to say. The Wellington City Council is reserving 3 new parking spaces for fast charger bays and 10 other medium speed chargers within the next few months, all of which would make the operation of an EV more convenient, Council Sustainability Manager Moana Maki said. We are also part of a project funded by the Low Emission Vehicles Contestable Fund that make residential charging possible for those with on-street parks. This is important in Wellington because Wellington's one of those hilly kind of cities. Not all houses have off-street car parking, and not all houses have garages where people would normally recharge their cars. If you were living in a more of a flatter suburban town, most people have parking spaces on their property, but in Wellington, I think it was around 40% of houses don't have any parking on their own property. Because of the terrain, it's just not practical to do that. Despite the current lack of charging points, Morale said that the charge he got at home overnight twice a week would easily see the car through the week. For most Kiwis, their commute is 26 kilometres. I get about 120 to 150 kilometres from the battery. From other driver stories, on rare occasions when owners got caught out with a flat battery, they simply improvised with emergency charging lead that the cars come with. This sometimes meant unplugging a service station fridge or ducking into a campsite. People are usually interested and curious in it, that they're happy for you to plug in, Morale said. In 18 months, the family had experienced one case of range anxiety when they drove to Palmerston North for an air show. We dropped down to about 4% of the battery, but I know from research there's a little more than that amount still in there. They tell you is still in there. It took roughly 20 minutes at a fast charge station to go from flat to 80% charged, he said, which was enough time to squeeze in a coffee. In terms of cost, an older model of the Leaf comes in at about $12,000, with newer models costing $20,000 to $30,000. Prospective buyers might be worried about not being able to get their EV services at normal mechanics, but Morale said finding a qualified provider was a doodle. So there we go. So that's the article from Stuff. What's sort of fun with this is the comments. So I made a Stuff account specifically for this, so I could put some replies in. The thing about the Stuff website is it's still a news website that allows you to type your own comments, and lots of people just type whatever their 2 cents worth, and that's what I did as well. So my name on Stuff is Daryl Talks NZ because that's what fitted in the allowable number of letters. So I'll just read some of these comments. CMUP1 says, it's interesting reading comments. People seem to think Leafs are a tiny, impractical car. Well, they're not. I'm 6'2" and don't have any trouble fitting in, and don't even have to put the driver's seat right back. It has more rear leg room than the Toyota Camry and has a deeply recessed boot that can accommodate our 2 chunky Labradors for a trip to the beach, or about 8 bags of putting mix. The 280 Newton meters of torque it delivers instantly make the extra load unnoticeable. The fact is, they are far superior to any sub 2.5 litre engine car, I presume he means, naturally aspirated petrol engine like the Mazda 3 or Toyota Corolla in every area apart from the range. And I would say that the handling of some others if you're a spirited driver. But 6 usernames says, what a waste of 20 minutes a day. And then Paula Benefit replies, how is that? You plug in, have a coffee, job done. Mostly charge at home anyway, so much cheaper. And Spates56 says, yep, almost as bad as the mods who must all be Leaf drivers, only letting a few of us minority fossil fuelers vent our displeasure against the electric dream mob. B-Hub says, ha ha ha, what a joke. For 99% of the population, these cars are not practical. Just saw someone post for a lift or a borrow of a real car because their Leaf didn't have the range for the journey they wanted to do. Bah ha ha ha. Electric vehicle owners are like vegetarians, smugly telling everyone how superior they are and saving their environment, etc. Yeah, I enjoy smugly telling people how great electric cars are. Elisis33 replies, You seem to be unnecessarily offended by people who are trying to save money, help reduce the rate at which humanity is destroying the environment. The Tesla Model S has claimed a record for over 1,000 kilometers on a single charge. It's only a matter of time before this technology is accessible to everyone. By the way, every major car manufacturer is now exploring this technology. Do you know why? Because everyone with an ability to think rationally knows that fossil fuels are unsustainable. Brambosi replies to that, the problem with your reply is what makes you think electric cars are clean and green. Look at the whole picture. New Zealand does not currently produce sufficient electricity. If every car was electric, where would the extra power come from? Sydney, for example, building more coal-burning generators to keep up with demand. Do you think burning coal is clean? No, it's just another unsustainable fossil fuel you put in. Then we look at the battery manufacturing and eventual disposal. Is that clean and green? Please look to the whole picture here. I would actually reply to that. I haven't replied to it. I ought to have. Batteries in electric cars are going to be about 99% recyclable, which is much better than the fossil fuels that we burn in current cars. And then the other thing is in New Zealand we're about 85% renewable energy so far. And I did the calculation myself. I actually sat down and actually did the calculation and found that it would only take about 9% more electricity to run all the normal cars, vans, SUVs, utes, the small lightweight cars that everybody owns and uses every day. All of those would only require 9% more electricity to be generated in New Zealand. And this would be able to be done by putting solar panels on roofs of houses. That would make up the entire difference in electricity. And the other way we could do it, we have one hydro dam that's very large that sells all of its power to an aluminium smelter at a very low price. So if we connected that onto the national grid, that would actually supply 5% of all the energy that we would need out of that 9%. So it would supply more than half by itself. So it's actually very easy for this to be clean and green in New Zealand. I'm not going to read everybody's comments, but I will read a couple and ones that I replied to. Snowman says, it's all well and good skiting about $10 a week to run. The problem will come when there are thousands of electric cars on the raw. He says he saved $7,800 on petrol. A large portion of that would normally go into the government's coffers as tax. So what happens when the government's tax intake drops drastically? Where is the money coming from for road maintenance or any other government dollars needed that's financed by the consolidated fund? The only other option is a very high road registration, but the government is keeping quiet on that one because it will scare people off going electric. Well, the actual answer is that currently lightweight vehicles are divided into effectively two categories. The categories are petrol driven and non-petrol driven. And so you can imagine that an electric car is a non-petrol driven car, which means that it have road user charging just the same as diesel vehicles do, because in New Zealand we have a tax in petrol that pays for roads when people buy petrol, but when we buy diesel, the tax is not included in the fuel when you buy it. That's because diesel is used in some things that aren't cars. And also, the heavier your vehicle, the more road user charge you pay. So everything under 3.5 tons, metric tons, has a set rate, and it's $62 per 1,000 kilometers. Which is the same as $6.20 per 100 kilometers. So if you're recharging your electric car at home and you paid $3 for electricity, you pay $6 for road user charge costs. However, the road user charges are exempted until 2% of all the cars in New Zealand are powered by electricity. I would just guess that if you went from no road user charge to $6.20 per 100 kilometers, that's actually an astonishing large increase. And I would imagine that any government that does that, especially once you get quite a lot of cars, people are going to sort of freak out. The other part of government policy is that also they're not going to charge road user charges on vehicles until 2021, even if we go past 2% cars by that time. So that's what they've said so far. Yeah, in the end, we'll have to have a road user charge for electric cars. That's just something we're going to do. This person says, if full charge takes 30 minutes and I'm the fifth in the queue, that means I'll have to wait 2 hours and a half to get my car going again. No thanks, I'll stick with my petrol car. And I replied, I've used a fast charger to recharge an EV about 20 times. So far there has been no queue. I'm sure it will happen someday. I've used petrol station about 1,000 times to refill and have been in a queue about 10 times. It seems that the energy sellers are good at providing infrastructure. Looks like a functional market economy. Yeah, so, that's one of those things. One other person replies, Paula Benefit says, most public charger points have 4 plugs. As more and more appear, this won't be an issue. Yeah, so I think that will be able to work out alright. Bad Stat says, my car uses less than $10 a week of petrol, but then I only use it a couple of days a week. Yeah, that's right. So people who just have a car for going shopping, then the economics of a petrol car are fine at the moment, but one day, and I think like this is very soon. So like if you buy a really old Nissan Leaf, like a 2011, I've seen those down in the single thousands for prices. I would imagine that you might have even been able to buy one a couple of times for 5 or 6 or 8,000. Certainly I've seen 8,000 for a 2011 Nissan Leaf. And so if you only use that to go to the supermarket a couple of times a week, then that's a really good car for you. It's way safer than whatever car you might be driving if you're driving a 15-year-old car. And and that will work fine. The Caveman says, sorry, but did I miss something? Do all EV promoters really think that when there are 500,000 of these EVs on the road that are not paying? Oh yeah, so that's back to the ruck thing. So yeah, that's right. The ruck charges will come back, so that's fine. A lot of people complain that the maths in this article don't work out, and they sort of don't, but maybe that person takes a lot of holidays, and so maybe that would be right. And then Mojo14 just asks an ordinary question. How much does it cost to fast charge one of these cars? So I wrote in Rotorua, fast charging is 40 cents per kilowatt hour. I think Napier and Hastings are the same. The other people here, Tony Lewis has said how much it cost for Tony to recharge. And Onion Peel says short answer, 25 cents per kilowatt and 25 cents per minute. They were saying that a 24 kilowatt Nissan Leaf would recharge to 80% in $14.50, which seems about right to me. And then INZ says most fast charging in Auckland is free. So in Auckland, some of the big power companies have set up fast chargers for free as publicity for their electric companies, much to the annoyance of people who run ChargeNet who are trying to sell. They don't say their business is exactly for profit. They're just saying it's a business where they need to recover the costs. The people who own ChargeNet are independently wealthy, so they enjoy driving their electric cars themselves, and in many cases they've put fast chargers where they want to be able to drive to, so they can drive their cars to those places, which is awesome of them. What else? Yeah, just some other people wondering about various details. Tony Lewis says, oh yeah, Tony asked a question, but he doesn't know that. So in New Zealand, a lot of people have some basic vocabulary of Maori language. He didn't know that a koha is a gift. Liz S is talking about various places where you can rent an electric car. So Mevo in Wellington has, you can rent a car by the hour, which is a car sharing club. And Blue Cars in Auckland have car rentals, and also in Waiheke and Christchurch for Nissan Leaf rentals. So if you're visiting New Zealand and you're going to those places, you can rent a Nissan Leaf, or if you're in Wellington and you can set up a Mevo account, you might be able to drive a Mevo car for your visit to Wellington, which is quite worthwhile. I've driven a Mevo car because I just asked the people who own it if I could test drive one of their cars, so that was fun. So Fraser at Mevo took me for a ride in the car, or I took a drive with Fraser in the car. It was fun. Okay, what else? Gazur likes, can't beat the sound of a petrol engine motorbike at 14,000 RPM. Yeah, that's true. Like, they're nice and squealy, aren't they? They like make a awesome shriek. Yeah. Yeah, motorbikes are really fun, but electric motorbikes are also very fun. So, that's just another thing. Mort Canard. He's a dead duck, I guess. Um, I'm all for electric cars, but can we have some rational information? Yes, you can recharge them going downhill, but the conservation of energy and frictional losses say that you actually put more energy going up the hills in the first place. And then he worked out that saving $7,800 on petrol over 18 months is about 2,600 litres per year at $2 per litre. For a car that goes 7 litres per 100 kilometres, it means that he's annually driving 37,000 kilometres. About 2.5 the average for an average New Zealander. Yeah, that's right. Those maths in that article do seem a little odd. I replied, I drove my Leaf up to Turoa Skifield and it used 28% driving uphill, then I got 9 or 10% back going downhill. Regeneration helps, but I get better range from flat, smooth highways. That's right. The new highways that are asphalted in that really nice black, smooth asphalt, you actually see the car efficiency graph improve just when you drive from normal chip seal road onto that beautiful smooth motorway. That actually helps a lot for fuel efficiency. It looked like it made like a 20% difference in energy usage. So, you can go 20% further on those nice smooth motorways. I found the same when I was driving my hybrid car around Auckland. My fuel economy was much better driving on the Auckland motorways than it was around the countryside where I live, mostly driving, a lot of the time on that kind of chip seal. And then I went on to say that normal driving, about $3 to recharge at home per 100 kilometers, $9 to drive 100 kilometers on fast chargers. And I've used fast chargers. Yeah, I tried to work out how much. About 1,400 kilometers. Yeah, 1,400 kilometers and about 4,500 kilometers on charging at home. And I said I plan to sell my hybrid car, which I totally do. So if you want to buy my hybrid car, look for the video about my red hybrid car. I might put it on Trade Me soon. Somebody else says that they cost them about $3 a week to charge their car. A lot of people in New Zealand, I would say especially retired people, they have cars, but they don't necessarily drive that far. They just have the car to just go and visit friends or go and do daily shopping, that kind of stuff. A lot of those people only clock up 100 or 200 kilometers a week at the most. And so electric cars are really good for them. They never have to go to the petrol station. They can securely and safely recharge their cars in their garage at home, which is great. I think that's a really good solution. So you don't need any extra infrastructure for that. You need far less infrastructure for electric cars than you do for petrol cars, because everybody already has an electric car charging place at home in general in New Zealand, because we live mostly in suburban housing. INZ says the batteries in a Leaf will last way more than 8 years. Mine is 6 years old and I've only lost 1% in the last year driving 25,000 kilometers. The batteries never really die. They just very slowly reduce in capacity. Yeah, that's something I tell people all the time. A lot of people will be like, yeah, but after 8 years, won't you need to buy a new battery for your car and it's going to cost $5,000? That's often what people think. And the answer to that is just like any car. When they get older, you tend to actually use them less and less. I mean, a lot of countries must have a few older cars that people don't drive very much. But I imagine that if my car gets to the state where its range is insufficient for me, well, I'll sell it down the market. Maybe a 20-something-year-old wants a first car, and they just need a car to just go and do a few errands or whatever. They'll be happy to buy a car that can only drive 100 kilometers if it's a really affordable price for them, and that's just how that goes. So I think that the batteries they'll continue to work for very, very long amounts of time, but they do gradually lose range. So it might be that when these cars are 25 years old, which is way older than the average car in New Zealand, they might only go half as far as they did when the cars were brand new. But by that time, there's going to be so many charging stations around anyway. You're better if you do need to take odd drive and your car's only got 75 kilometers of range. You'll better recharge it to go 150 kilometers if you need to do that. I don't think that will be really a problem. And then in the end, when the car is finally done, when it's driven 300,000 k's and no one wants to use it anymore, the batteries can be recycled, so they can be recycled into new batteries. So that's awesome too. MFJ says, so has anyone asked the question, what happens if 100,000 people plug their EV cars into their home at night, as 100,000 is only 2% of the total number of vehicles? Is that right? 2%. Does that mean there's 50 times, there's 5 million cars? Are there 5 million cars in New Zealand? Perhaps there are. If you just plug them all in, that's totally fine. Cars don't really use that much power. Yeah, we might need to improve, at the most we might need to increase our electricity production by 15%, but that will happen over a decade or more anyway, so that's just completely normal amounts of power change, so it won't be a problem. Answer to the question is yes. Question has been asked and answered. The whole New Zealand fleet going electric will increase demand by 15%. The power generation to meet that demand is already approved. Most people will use their cars' inbuilt charger timers to charge at cheaper rates in the wee small hours. Yeah. Thanks, John Palmer. Yeah. Diesel Mechanics is asking about, will the batteries need to be replaced? I've already talked about that. When power prices rise under Labour's taxes, all these benefits will be lost. Well, the thing is that effectively, because we don't get charged much for the pollution from carbon dioxide, we're not paying the real price. In a sustainable future, we will actually have to pay the real price of things. And it's going to be shocking for some people who have always been used their whole life to never paying the real price for the transportation. But if you want to make your budget match, then actually you have to pay the real price. Steve Colliger says, it's amazing how little maintenance these cars require. What will this technology do to all the auto mechanics trade in the future? And I replied, as technology changes, old jobs go obsolete. Petrol stations will turn into cafes and restaurants that have 50-car recharge stations, and auto mechanics will retrain to work on other machines. That's what I think will happen. The other thing is, auto mechanics might retire as well. A lot of people, it seems to be that a lot of people who actually have real jobs in the real economy these days are middle-aged people. In 20 years they'll be retired. So younger people have to find new types of employment and new types of jobs. That's what a dynamic economy is about, if you're into that type of economic argument. Who's going to pay for the road? We petrol users are. And then again, I tell them about the ruck thing. It's the same question. Everybody asks that over and over and over again. That's amazing. Chief Pedant. Oh yeah, that's good. There are at least 2 sets of charging stations on the waterfront that don't seem to be mentioned in this article. I think, and I've replied, I think they are the Mevo car share places. And I asked, do they have Audi e-trons parked in front of them? Those are the ones that Fraser Blake let me drive. So that was awesome. Meow24 is thinking about getting solar power for their cars, and a battery like a Tesla system to store the power. That's great. Yeah, Mousy013 does the maths again on that article and finds it a bit questionable. Breen Whitman says that you can't get night plan power charging rates so much so more, but then Keiko says actually power companies are bringing back the cheaper night rate, so that's interesting. What else? Some more people doing maths. Oh yeah, okay, hang on. Spider24 asks, they're going to have to install a pile more fast chargers as the years go on. The number of electric vehicles increases steeply. Those 20-minute fast chargers are probably going to have 30 to 40-minute waiting lines for them if the charger numbers don't keep up. And that's absolutely true. So I've replied something that I've imagined, which I think would probably turn out, because this is pretty similar to what Tesla's doing. I would imagine there'll be huge car parks of fast chargers with 50 to 100 chargers along highways, say 100 to 150 kilometers from major cities, and then I specified north and south of Auckland, out of Wellington, north and south of Christchurch, out of Dunedin, and near Taupo. These will have big cafes in the centre and a fast food outlet, one or two other shops. They'll be used mostly on the long holiday weekends when thousands of families go on holiday road trips. All the parks will have chargers, and I mean all of the parks will have chargers. I would imagine that some of them might have fast chargers and some of them might have slower chargers, but still quite high rate chargers. All the parks will have chargers. Most people will stop for 10 to 30 minutes, time to use the facility, get a drink, eat a snack or eat a meal, and the cost will be about $10 to $30 to pick up somewhere between 120 kilometers and 350 kilometers of range, depending on the model of their car. On normal weekends and at night, most of the chargers will not be used, but the cars will charge a bit faster because the charging load will be spread across fewer cars. So I would imagine that the Chademo and the CCS type chargers, I think this is actually in the latest version of Chademo, that if you have a charger which has multiple outlets, it can spread the power between the cars. Tesla's chargers work this way, so they're superchargers. I think for, I'm going to just kind of guess this, I think for each 4 chargers that has one giant power supply, and it spreads the power between up to 4 cars plugged in. But you see, if you're only plugging in for 10 to 30 minutes, then cars are plugging and unplugging while other cars are charging. And so when there's only 1 or 2 cars plugged in, they'll get the full charging rate. And when there's 3 or 4 cars plugged in, the power supply divvies out the power a bit proportionally, but also as your car is almost charged. So this is like the thing where for a lot of electric cars charging above 80%, the charger slows down, which is why a lot of chargers default to 80%. What happens is that as some cars get to 80% or higher, then cars that have just plugged in that are down at 10 or 20 or 30%, they'll charge much quicker. So the one giant power supply will divvy out the power by need more than by any other method. And that's just because flatter batteries can charge faster and almost full batteries only charge slowly. Anyway, so if you have some kind of CHAdeMO or CCS DC charger that works in the same way, then that's what the actual answer will be. So Tesla already do that, and I'm sure the other kinds of car chargers will do that in the future. From my guess, the thing, if you use that type of charging scheme, older cars will still happily work with newer cars. So if they so there's a new version of CHAdeMO which charges, I can't remember, it's 2 or 3 or 4 times faster than the current type. If you've got power supplies that can, if you plug in a sort of a current CHAdeMO car with some new CHAdeMO cars, and the chargers are very smart, they can divvy out the power between the different types of cars. So I think that would be, so partly that's what I hypothesize, and partly I know that to be the case already. Yeah, so the government just announced today that they're going to build about 10 more new major motorways, extending our motorway networks around our major cities. So in some cases, this is extending the motorway networks far more than 100 kilometers out of, or around 100 kilometers out of major towns and cities. So where I live, it's 50 kilometers to Wellington and 50 kilometers to live in. And so they're saying that they're going to extend the motorway network around 60 or 70 kilometers north of where I live, which is awesome for driving on. That would be good when those are done. What else? Yeah, the economics will work out because of the captive customers. So if when we build these new motorways, we work out where we're going to build these big charging centres, because I'm certain that they'll need it for those long holiday weekends, then the restaurants and cafes and shops that are installed in the middle of those charging facilities will have a captive market. And generally people can't really help themselves. If you have to stop at the side of the road for half an hour, you're probably just going to buy lunch or something like that. So, opening a sandwich place or a sushi place or a fast food place amongst a giant car park of fast chargers is the way ahead there. Rastus says, I'm dead keen for the majority of vehicles to go electric. Then what will the gas stations do? With decreased fuel demand, drop their prices to compete for dwindling customer business, and I'll be able to get back into the old 5 litre big straight 8 and drive my toy cheaply for a change. And it's like, a few people have said, I don't really know what kind of car you have that has a straight 8, but maybe it's a Duesenberg, a Packard, Mercedes, Auburn, Bugatti, Oldsmobile, Stutz, Packards, and Cords, to name a few. So there's some straight 8 engined cars. I replied that it's unlikely that petrol will stay the same price. I think that petrol will suddenly ramp up at some stage because there has been a very low rate of discovery of easy to recover oil reserves in the last 20 years. Consequently, it will be more and more expensive to recover oil in the future. But as there become more electric cars, fuel production will decrease and the economy of scale for fuel production will decrease, making fuel more expensive. And then I said, it took 13 years for the majority of horses to be replaced with cars. I expect that the transition from petrol cars to electric cars will be about the same. The New Zealand average car age is about 14 years. We're about 2 years into the change. And so I said, enjoy the cheap fuel while it's still available. Yeah, someone said lack of demand doesn't make supplying product cheaper. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Oh yeah. Yeah, there's lots of interesting maths about how to solve various problems. Oh yeah, so someone was saying about comparing cars. They always compare a Nissan Leaf to a Nissan Micra. They're totally a different class of car. Nissan Micras are tiny compared with a Nissan Leaf. Um, I think that the actual comparison, if you're comparing a Nissan Leaf to another petrol car, then it's a Nissan Pulsar ST is probably what you want to look at. So I had a look online and found some 2016 Nissan Pulsar STs. They come in at about the same price as my 30 kilowatt Leaf, or somewhere between a 24 kilowatt and 30 kilowatt Leaf. And they're probably very similar. I found the the Pulsar is 96 kilowatts, the Leaf is 80 kilowatts, the Pulsar is 174 Newton meters, and the Leaf is 280 Newton meters. So that's like closest comparison I could think of off the top of my head. Someone might be able to find a better one than that. Yep. Oh yeah, somebody said, could we envision solar recharging outlets as an option? Um, And I replied, if you park at home during the day, 8 or 10 big panels on the roof of your house would recharge an EV. 250 watts by 10 is about 2.5 kilowatts. That would charge a car in 10 hours. But of course, it's not always sunny for 10 hours a day. It might be sunny for 5 hours a day, so you might need 2 hours, 2 days to charge it. Or you'll just pick up 50 or 80 kilometers a day. That's just my guess. Yeah, Tesla does solar roof and home batteries, something like that. I don't know. I think I've had about enough of talking and thinking about this. Lots of question marks and brackets question marks says how much will road user charges be per kilometre when they introduce them? And I said it's currently $62 per 1,000 kilometres, but I think that they might have a special rate for electric cars. Otherwise, it will be a bit of a shocker. But then we might have to pay true cost. Oh yeah, greybeard. It took roughly 20 minutes at a fast charge station to go from flat to 80%. He said, which was enough time to squeeze in a coffee. So a couple of coffees at $4 each. Did he add to that the $10 per week for fuel? Yeah, well, I know that when I drove from Rotorua down to back to Wellington, I was a bit worried about the number of cups of coffee that I was drinking. So in some places, I stopped and recharged my car and didn't have a cup of coffee. Yeah, oh well, great. I got to the end of the page, and the video's only looking like it's going to be half an hour long, so that's awesome. Yikes. Oh well, thanks for watching this episode of reading stuff so you don't have to. I hope it's not too boring. I just thought it would be funny because it's just one of those really cold, wintry days outside. I didn't want to go outside. I thought it would be more fun to have a day in front of the computer. Well, catch you guys later, and please like, subscribe, and comment. If you ask me some questions in the comments, I'm sure I'll come up with some awesome answer. And now I'm getting text messages like crazy.